Do you
A
take this
cathedral,
man, Adrian,
candlelight,
to be your
200
lawfully
guests.
wedded husband?
The officiant's
do.
voice, warm and rehearsed. A close shot of a bride's mouth. 4 words. That's all it took. At 4:12 in the afternoon, in front of 200 guests who would later swear under oath that nothing seemed wrong, Simone Duval stood at the altar of St. Adelaide's and did not say the words, "to honor and obey." Everyone heard, "I do." No one heard the silence where 4 specific words should have been, no one except the one person in that church who had been waiting 11 years to hear her leave them out. 9 months later, a police evidence bag would sit on her workbench, next to a clock that hadn't ticked in 60 years. A restoration workshop. Brass gears laid out in precise rows on velvet. A single lamp. The question isn't whether Simone loved Adrian Castellan. By every account, she did. The question is why a woman who spent her entire life obsessed with precision, with mechanisms that fail the instant one part moves out of order, would deliberately, publicly, skip a part of her own wedding vow, in a family known for punishing exactly that kind of deviation. What do you do when the only way to tell the truth is to leave something out? Evening. The Castellan family estate. A drawing room. A mantel clock, ornate, silent. 3 weeks before the wedding, Adrian's mother, Vivian Castellan, asked Simone, as a gift, she said, to restore the same mantel clock Henri Duval had worked on 11 years earlier. It had never run properly since. Simone recognized her father's handwriting the moment she opened the case, a small pencil mark inside the movement, a habit he had of dating every repair. The date matched the week before he died. Behind the clock's weight assembly, where no restorer without her father's exact technique would think to look, Simone found a false panel. Inside it, a folded shipping manifest, decades old, and a name circled in her father's handwriting, not a Castellan name. A customs inspector's name. She didn't tell Adrian. She photographed the manifest and put the panel back exactly as she found it, the way her father taught her to leave a mechanism undisturbed until you understand every part of it. Late night. Simone's workshop. Her father's stopped pocket watch on the desk beside the photographed manifest. The customs inspector's name led her to old newspaper archives. He died the same year as Adrian's uncle, both deaths ruled accidental, both filed within 4 months of each other. She started restoring other Castellan family clocks, not because she was asked to, but because she now understood her father used every clock he touched as a place to hide what he found. In a second clock, a long case model in the estate's library, she found a photograph tucked behind the pendulum, her father, standing beside the customs inspector, both men holding rolled documents, neither smiling. A vow, like a mechanism. Skip one part, and it still ticks. Her father hadn't skipped anything. He'd hidden the missing parts where only someone who understood clocks the way he did would ever find them. The pattern was unmistakable now. For 3 generations, anyone who got close enough to the Castellan import business to notice its irregularities didn't leave quietly. They left permanently, filed as accidents. The night before the wedding. Simone in her childhood home, her father's workshop preserved exactly as he left it. Here was the choice she faced: walk away from the wedding, go to the police, and very possibly prove nothing, because every witness who could confirm it was already dead, and the Castellan family had spent 30 years making sure of that. Or marry into the one family with the access, the trust, and the archives she'd need to find the one piece of proof solid enough to matter, becoming, in the process, exactly what she'd spent 11 years distrusting, someone inside the silence. What do you owe a dead father, distance, or proximity? She didn't call off the wedding. She decided, instead, on the one form of protest small enough for no one to stop, and precise enough for exactly one person to understand. She would marry Adrian Castellan, and she would not promise to obey. Weeks after the wedding. Simone in the estate's archive room, going through decades of family shipping records under the pretense of cataloging antiques for insurance. The uncle's death wasn't an accident, and it wasn't ordered by Adrian's father, as the family had always quietly implied to keep the blame contained to one dead man. The shipping irregularities, forged provenance on imported antiques, smuggled through customs as restoration pieces, were the uncle's operation from the start. Adrian's father spent years covering for his brother, not running the scheme himself. The customs inspector died because he was the uncle's contact, not his enemy, and started asking for more money than the family was willing to keep paying quietly. The story Simone thought she understood, a father orchestrating cover-ups, was never accurate. The man she suspected most was protecting someone, the same helpless way her own silence at the altar had been protecting her father's memory. This changed what she was looking for. The operation didn't die with the uncle. Someone kept it running these past 11 years, cleanly enough that a horologist's daughter with a photograph and a manifest still couldn't prove who. Night. Vivian Castellan's private study, a room Simone had never been invited into before tonight. Vivian invited her in herself, poured 2 glasses of wine, and told her, almost gently, that she already knew what Simone had found in the mantel clock. She admitted it without being asked twice. She had run the operation since her husband's death, 12 years ago, not her brother-in-law, not Adrian, not anyone Simone had suspected. She had recruited Simone into the family the same way she recruited every specialist the business needed, quietly, patiently, by funding a struggling restoration business 2 years before her son ever happened to meet its owner. Simone wasn't chosen to be loved. She was chosen because no one authenticates smuggled antiques as convincingly as the daughter of the man who used to catch them. Henri Duval didn't die because he found the scheme. He died because Vivian offered him a choice, silence, in exchange for his daughter's future being quietly funded for life, and he refused it, in a room very much like this one. The mantel clock, fully restored now, ticking for the first time in 60 years. Adrian in the doorway, having heard enough of his mother's confession to understand what his silence had cost. Simone didn't call the police from the study. She waited until the clock struck, the sound filling the room for the first time since her father set it right 11 years too early, and she told Vivian the same thing her father apparently told her: she wasn't interested in being paid to stay quiet. Some mechanisms, once you understand every part of them, cannot be left running. Adrian didn't defend his mother. He handed Simone his journal instead, 11 years of half-written guilt, evidence enough, in his own handwriting, to place beside the manifest and the photograph. Months later. Simone's workshop. Her father's pocket watch, no longer stopped, ticking on the desk beside her. Vivian Castellan was indicted on the strength of a shipping manifest, a photograph, and a journal, evidence a dead horologist spent his final weeks quietly assembling and hiding in the one place he knew his daughter would eventually think to look. Adrian didn't leave the marriage, and Simone didn't ask him to prove anything more than he already had. What they built afterward wasn't the wedding either of them had imagined. It was something closer to what she understood at the altar, in the 4 words she refused to say. This is what the story reveals about silence: it isn't the absence of truth. It's a choice about which truth you're protecting, and who you're protecting it for, and sometimes the most honest thing a person can do is refuse to promise something they were never going to give. She never lied to him at that altar. She simply told him the truth in the only language he hadn't learned to listen for yet, the sound of something missing.